Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second in our four-part webinar series, Supporting the Student Journey, a Life Cycle Approach. This series will highlight the different stages of the international student life cycle. Today's session focuses on the ways in which practitioners can provide international students with a seamless arrival and orientation experience. My name is Morgan Flanagan, and I am the Coordinator of Events and Special Initiatives at the BC Council for International Education. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that BCCIE is on the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Now, on to a few housekeeping items. I know we're all familiar with Zoom, but as a reminder, please use the Q&A function to send your questions or if you have any comments. If you need any technical assistance during the webinar, please use the chat box and we'll help answer your inquiry. Please note that this webinar will be recorded and available for viewing on the BCCIE website following the session. Remember that if you attend all four webinars in the series, you will receive a certificate of completion. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Ruben Onyango, Director, International Student Services at Thompson Rivers University, who will be moderating this webinar. Over to you.
Thank you, Morgan. And good morning, colleagues, and thank you for joining us today. I'm joining you from our Kamloops campus, which is situated on the lands of the Kamloops to Secwepemc within Secwepemc-Kulu, the traditional and unceded territory of the Secwepemc Nation. I'm excited for the opportunity to facilitate this webinar series hosted by BCCIE, where we'll take a deep dive into the International Student Life Cycle Framework, tackling key stages from pre-arrival to graduation and beyond, while highlighting challenges, best practices, strategies, and tools for holistic student journey. Last week, we discussed pre-arrival supports. Now the students are arrived in Canada, and we hope that we did enough to enable a soft landing, but we know that the realities on the ground are typically different and that international students need different supports when they arrive in Canada. So over the next 45 minutes, we'll discuss this in more detail. And joining me today are two guests, Mike Hillian, who's a global engagement liaison at North Island College in Comox here in BC, and Shona Garrett, the president and CEO of Edunova in Halifax, Nova Scotia. We'll start off with two brief presentations before moving on to the discussion period. And then once that is done, we'll have a few minutes for your questions. So again, thank you for joining us today. Mike, why don't you start us off?
So yeah, my name is Mike Hillian. I'm in the Comox Valley on Vancouver Island. I work at North Island College. We've got about 750 international students split between our campuses. I have a background as a high school English teacher, and I worked overseas. I taught in Shanghai, China for 3 years, and then really enjoyed working with international students over there, preparing them for university in Canada. So last year I made the transition to working in college, working directly with international students. I'll do a quick territorial acknowledgement for where I'm coming from. Our college, we're honored to acknowledge the traditional territories of the combined 35 First Nations of the Nucha-North, Kwakwaka'wakw, and Coast Salish traditions, on whose traditional territory and unceded territories our campuses are situated. There's a picture of our beautiful Comox Glacier, which we call Quinish. That's the indigenous word for our glacier. It means the white whale. Okay, so about North Island College, here we are on Vancouver Island. Got campuses in Comox Valley, Campbell River, and then smaller campuses in Port Alberni and Port Hardy. Yes, we're up over 750 international students right now from 46 different countries. That's about 13% of our total enrollment. Here's a picture of our Comox Valley campus. So about orientation and what we do here, just a quick note on our pre-arrival. We've started using a Brightspace course with some modules to help students prepare for their arrival. And then also once they're here, it's something that they can look back and reflect on as they're taking in information. If it's a little bit too much as they hear it at orientation, they can look back on this Brightspace course and reflect on that. So we've got modules on Canada's Indigenous peoples, the library and tech support at the college, academic integrity and plagiarism, the student life supports and counseling supports they can find here at North Island College, transit, arrivals, health insurance, housing, employment, avoiding scams, all that startup stuff. for when they first arrive, some info on studying in Canada, and also safety in Canada, wildlife, and other concerns that they might face arriving in a new country. So that's the pre-arrival orientation. Once they're here, so we do a virtual orientation event, which is usually the week before classes begin. That'll be on the Thursday of the week, and then the Friday of the week before classes begin in person. So about our virtual orientation, it's a mandatory 4-hour orientation. It used to take a whole day, but we found that more than 4 hours of attending a Teams meeting orientation, it was a bit hard to keep paying attention and keep that student engagement. So we switched some of the material from that to our pre-arrival, our Brightspace course. But what we do in our virtual orientation, we introduce them to a member of the student union who can talk about those supports. They meet the academic integrity chair. They meet their international student advisors who can help with courses and immigration. They meet their co-op and employment services coordinators. They meet a student outreach liaison from our Early Assist program, who's kind of a first step in referring them to other services like counseling, mental health support. We have a Q&A session with our manager of international student services. And then to break it up and make it kind of fun, we do some Canada and Vancouver Island trivia. So here's a screenshot. This was a question I asked, which of these foods was invented in Canada? And that was a trick question because all of them were. So yeah, virtual orientation, we make it mandatory. If students are unable to attend due to being in transit or technical difficulties, we just ask them to share that with us. And then those students who let us know they couldn't make it, we'll send out a recording of that orientation to them. For our in-person orientation, the following day, that's mandatory as well. We don't penalize students if they can't make it, but we just try to emphasize this is really important information and we really need you to be here if possible. So this is more about meeting other students, meeting our staff, and getting to know the college community. So we do some team building games. They get a presentation from a school counselor, one of our counselors here on culture shock, academic pressure, and also healthy relationships in a Canadian context, because that's if they're having relationships here, that's the context in which it will be, which could be different from their experience back home. We do campus tours. We do a free lunch, question and answer period. And then we also always include an indigenization activity. So that's a big part of what our international office does. We've got a plan called Journeying Together, where we work closely with the Indigenous Education Department to try and indigenize international education. So I just want to talk a little bit about that, and then I'll pass it along. So indigenizing our orientation events. For us, indigenization, it involves naturalizing Indigenous knowledge systems to make them respectfully evident in our places, spaces, and classroom environments. So we're lucky at North Island College. We've got a couple of fantastic elders and residents, local Indigenous people who work with us on events and helping support our sharing of cultural knowledge and information. So we'll obviously start the event with a territorial acknowledgement with one of our elders and residents, but we always will include a cultural presentation as well. So that could be dancing or a drumming group, regalia displays, herbal medicine demonstrations, or a language lesson. So I've got a picture here. This is at our Campbell River campus. We've got a fantastic gathering place there. And one of our elders, she's got a group of youth dancers and drummers who do fantastic cultural presentations. So she would do a presentation, talk a bit about herself and the land on which our students are arriving. We really try to emphasize that our students are arriving as guests, but I myself am a guest here on this land from the people who have been taking care of it for generations. So picture the dancing and then our international students with some of the dancers and the elders. So that's a quick look. I'll go into a bit more detail later, but yeah, that's some of the things we do here at North Island College to support students during orientation. Thanks, Ruben.
Thank you very much, Mike. Shauna, over to you now.
Thanks, Ruben. Thanks, Mike. That was a terrific overview of what you're doing for your orientation. And my name is Shauna Garrett. I'm the president and CEO of Edunova Cooperative in Nova Scotia. And I'm going to talk a little bit this afternoon about what it looks like in Nova Scotia from the point of a student thinking about making their journey to Nova Scotia to their arrival period and a little bit beyond that as well. So before I dive in, what I'm going to do is acknowledge as well that we are on Mi'kma'ki. So Edgenova is actually on the land of the Mi'kmaq people in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And a little bit more about Edgenova. So Edgenova's mission is to champion Nova Scotia as a leader in the international student experience while advancing both social and economic growth in the province. So our membership, a little bit different from the just post-secondary, is comprised of all of our colleges, universities, language schools, K-12 public and independent. And we all work together to bring students from all over the world to Nova Scotia to study, stay, live, and thrive. And we do this by offering a variety of different international student recruitment and retention initiatives in collaboration with our institutional partners and our government funders. So mainly we are funded by the province of Nova Scotia, but we also receive funding from the federal government through the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. So that's just a little about us. We're a nonprofit. And what I'm going to do this afternoon very, very quickly is give you an overview of what we've done to map the international student journey and the wraparound supports essentially powered by iCENT technology. So I'll quickly go into our Discover Nova Scotia New Student Resource Hub or our airport welcome desk, and then how that interconnects to our study and stay program. So we have launched 5 new programs in the last year. What we did was we reached out to international students across the province to figure out what the gaps were. So we focused on pre-arrival right to settlement, and we have strategically designed programs and interventions to support students throughout their decision-making process, through their application stage, through their academic journey, and right into the settlement process, because we do run a post-graduation immigration support program. But today we want to focus on the pre-arrival and the arrival portion of what we've done. So firstly, we have created the Discover Nova Scotia New Student Resource Hub. And this is an online resource created in an app with app technology to offer information to prospective students looking to study abroad, helping them to identify academic, career, and immigration opportunities to help make Nova Scotia a destination of choice. So this program will provide students with the information needed to make that choice. The secret sauce, if you will, behind this one is we have created a way to link academic programs to our institutions. We have linked that to the labor market and also pathways through the immigration options here in the province. So when students are taking a look at this app, they're going to be able to see the academic programs, what careers are linked up with those programs, and then also to think about what the labor market looks like so that they can make their pathway here if that's what they're looking to do. So that is available to all Nova Scotia prospective, admitted, and enrolled students. And this is just a sample of the content that you can see available through the app. So we have all kinds of information and video testimonials from students about our post-secondary institutions. We help them plan their move. We have search tools related to housing, health, finance, jobs and demand. So the materials really cover that whole, the concept of making that choice right through to being able to see themselves in their future here in Nova Scotia. We are working really hard at creating inclusive communities and welcoming communities here in Nova Scotia. So we want to make sure that all students that arrive here have a warm welcome on their campus and in our communities. So we're constantly trying to confirm for them that they've made the right decision to come to Nova Scotia. And our job is to ensure that the students want to stay in Nova Scotia after they graduate to work and live. So the programs that we are providing help build international student confidence in themselves, in their choice, and the skills they need to be successful here. So we have linked all of the information in that Discover Nova Scotia New Student Resource Hub to an online welcome desk, which links to a physical welcome desk. So we had welcome desks this year at the Halifax and Sydney airports, both in fall and winter. We had 14 hours a day, staff that was available to meet and greet students at the airport. We had a number of remote support folks available to be able to back students in the app. And that support was there 24/7. This season so far, we serviced and helped more than 1,000 new students. And we worked with all of our institutions to be present during their peak arrival times. And all of the employees that worked at our booth were students, international students, and we had 15 different languages represented. And we tried to provide a one-stop shop for them. So the service inclusions were shuttle and transport information from the airport, information on accommodation and hotels, Wi-Fi, refreshments, banking services, currency exchange, assistance with baggage claims, orientation and campus information. And we linked everything to their own campus. So the orientation desk was linked to each institution in our province, so that those students after arrival were able to seamlessly then go and check into the welcome weeks or orientation sessions at each of our institutions. One of the big hits this year was a SIM card. So we were able to partner with Rogers, and we provided every single international student that came in through this program with a SIM card for 1 month free for them to be able to start to connect immediately upon their arrival in the province. These are just a few stats on what we were able to do. So this year, just for the fall airport welcome desk, we had 2,572 students use the app. We had a great number of students that were looking and viewing the information in the app, 94 different countries that our students came from. More than 30,000 times the app was opened by these students. And essentially what you can see is that it was used to its greatest extent possible to be able to support our arriving students, both linking them up with folks on the ground, but also providing remote assistance en route. And we also had our winter arrivals. So we had airport welcome desks in Sydney and Halifax, because of course in the winter it is so much more challenging for our students to be able to adapt, in particular those coming from warmer countries. So we wanted to make sure everybody had a very, very warm welcome. And I would just also quickly like to skip over and let folks know that we also have linked that up with our Study and Stay program. Our Study and Stay program is a program we have a capstone program for final year post-secondary students, and a foundations program for students in years 1 through 3 of post-secondary. And we support those students throughout their student journey. So we do have an app that we are supporting them as well. And just a quick note to let you know that we've been running this program since 2016, and we've helped more than 400 students, and 86% of those students are staying in the province 1 year post-graduation. And I'll open it up to questions after Ruben moves us along to the next section of our presentation. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Shauna, and thank you, Mike. It's good to see the two different perspectives. Today we have a college representative, and then we have the perspective from an organization that supports institutions in welcoming international students to Canada. And that is a really good segue to our discussion period. The first question today, how can universities and colleges collaborate with local organizations and community groups to create opportunities for international students to engage with the community?
So what we have been doing in Nova Scotia is our program has, I think now we have over 30 different partners that are working with our Study and Stay program. So that's the program I very briefly touched on that is supporting international students throughout their post-secondary experience. And what we have done with that particular program is we have linked up with our connector immigration programs and our settlement services. So Nova Scotia offers ISANS, which is a settlement service, which has additional resources to what we are able to offer. So we have done essentially an asset map of every community in the province and every institution in the province. And we have overlaid that with the settlement services provided at the outset, but also the connector programs that are connected to our immigration streams. So we are doing our best to not replace any of the services that currently exist within our communities, but we are looking for ways to provide students with opportunities to engage with those services, because we know from the research that we've done, students are most likely to stay in the province post-graduation if they are, in addition to being engaged with their campus community, they're also engaged with their community. So we have volunteerism opportunities. We have micro-credentials and badging throughout our program to encourage students to be able to connect with their communities and get engaged, find ways to volunteer, give back, and make those really important connections so that they're, interested in staying potentially, but also have the best possible experience here in Nova Scotia.
Great. Thank you. Mike, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. Yeah, I could just mention a few of the community organizations that we've managed to build relationships with to support students when they're arriving. So same for us, we've got a really strong immigrant welcome center in our community, and we've chatted with them. They're able to kind of provide some support that we can't, settlement services, and also helping students with families. So helping with the process of students who have school-age children, connecting them with the local school district. We've also got a relationship with Service BC for BC ID cards. One of our graduates is the executive director or the government agent of the local Service BC. So we invite him to our orientation to chat with students about those services and kind of show them what's possible if they stay here and join our community full time. We also have a relationship with the local RCMP detachment, and we invite them to orientation so that students can see that police officers are safe and approachable in Canada. So we're still working on that. What other community organizations can we connect with that we can really plug our students into? Back to you, Ruben.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's awesome when you have colleges, universities partnering with local organizations, because otherwise what tends to happen is there's a duplication of services. And, just speaking from Kamloops perspective, we've been having conversations with some local organizations that support our students and our students' families, just to try and figure out how can we work smarter? How can we do the things that we do really well and allow community organizations to do the things that they do really well, so that we're providing, amazing supports to our students and avoiding situations where students necessarily, think they're not getting service from one area and want to go get it from another area, and then they're being sent back saying, hey, these are supports you should be getting from your institution, right? So it's really good to see that collaboration, and I'm really I'm getting lots of ideas as you're both speaking, Mike and Shauna, and I'm hoping that everyone in attendance is kind of gleaning some good information as well. Second question is around orientation. What are the key components of an effective arrival and orientation experience for international students? So again, this will differ from an institutional perspective compared to perspective of a local organization. So Mike, why don't you start us off on this one?
See, I already gave an outline of what we do for orientation, but I could provide a few more details there. Just to note, I did mention our orientation is mandatory. We tell students it's mandatory. We can't fully enforce that, but I just really wanted to emphasize with students, you have to try your absolute best to be there. If you're not coming, connect with me, because I want to make that personal connection with them, so they at least have a face to the name. And if they've missed out on that information, they know where to find it from me. So yeah, with our pre-arrival right space course, our virtual orientation, and in-person orientation, there's a lot of important information there that startup information, getting your SIN card, your bank, your phone plan, studying in Canada, being safe in Canada, what services do we have here at the college to support you. That can be information overload though. There's students are going through a lot during that time. Most of them are arriving, they don't have a place to live yet. They might be staying in a short-term accommodation. They're meeting with landlords, they're finding roommates. There's a lot going on. I know a lot of what we share during that week or two, they might not remember. So in addition to all those important key pieces of information, for me, one of the most important things of effective arrival and orientation is just so students know where to find information. So if they forget it or they missed it, who can they talk to get that information, and who are the important people on the ground here that are going to be their supports. So they're going to meet their international student advisor, who they can talk to about their courses, about immigration, about healthcare. They're going to meet the local NIC counselor, who can help them with mental health support. They're going to meet me, who's available to help them find housing with their transition here to Canadian society. So even if they don't remember what the information is, they know who the person is who can share that information with them. So just showing them that and building those relationships. So with our NIC staff, but also with their fellow students, making connections with newly arriving students who are going through what the same thing as them. And then organizing events where they can meet our current students who maybe 4 months ago, 8 months ago, went through the exact same thing, and can really empathize and share some helpful information with them. So yeah, we've got our pre-arrival, our virtual in-person orientation, but also that face to the name, that personal connection is really important to me in an effective orientation.
And Shauna, from the perspective of an organization that supports institutions in welcoming students to Canada, what do you have to add to what Mike said?
The pieces, Ruben, that we are focused on is providing support that post-secondary institutions aren't able to offer. So we definitely are trying not to duplicate already existing services. So we are looking for ways to do get constant feedback from students to fill in the gaps. So we do know that one of the gaps, as I mentioned, was that pre-arrival information and then the airport welcome desk. We know that that has been a big component. And this year, more than ever, there have been housing challenges across the country. I don't today purport to be able to solve the housing situation from the Edgenova vantage point. But what we are doing and what we have done is this year we had students that showed up at the airport that didn't have their housing arranged in advance and just thought they would come and sort of wing it. So we did this year more than ever help students through the resources that are available through their institutions and through the communities, have and arrange both temporary and then moving into longer term housing situations. Those were the ones essentially that showed up unprepared or showed up in Halifax and were meant to be in Sydney, making sure that they were getting to the right place and getting housed in those ways. Housing is a challenge here. What we have been doing from our vantage point is advocacy. So we've been doing a lot of outreach and advocacy with our partners, and all of them are of course, are very, very keen to be engaged in finding ways to assist. So everything that we've done is the creation of the app to build upon what already exists for our post-secondary institutions and all of their students. Fill in. Some of our institutions are very, very well resourced. Some of them aren't as well resourced. So we try to provide some equity into that system as well, so that throughout the province, all students have access to information that is available, that's delivered through app technology, and that there is support available to them in addition to what their institutions are able to offer. So those are just a few ideas, but there's certainly much more to do in this area.
One point that stood out to me there is, again, related to welcoming students in Canada. I think sometimes we really discount how valuable it is for a student to arrive in Canada and see, have somebody to welcome there. whether it's somebody familiar who they've seen in a pre-arrival webinar or somebody they've received emails from. I remember speaking to a student this last winter semester, and they were very grateful for the welcome, and asking them what was the hardest part of their journey getting to Canada. And they said, that plane ride from Vancouver to Kamloops was the most scary thing they've ever been in, because they'd never been in a propeller plane, right? Just used to flying jet aircraft. So that journey from Vancouver to Kamloops is a little bit scary for them. But when they arrived and, this welcoming committee, that really puts their minds at ease. So, we're all doing good work, and it's good to see that we're able to collaborate with each other. All right, so the next question is related to housing. What supports and resources does the organization offer to international students before an arrival in Canada? And then the second part of the question is, what role do universities and colleges and local community organizations play in providing safe and affordable housing options for international students? And here we can talk about challenges, best practices, and any innovative solutions that you might have.
Thanks, Ruben. I touched on this in my last answer because housing was, I think, our biggest challenge this year. So that rose to the top in our pre-arrival and our arrival conversations. The other one, of course, that rose to the top was healthcare. The piece that I haven't mentioned is that one of the very important parts, and touching on Mike's comment about the personalized experience and your comment about welcoming committees, we did have an individual welcome package addressed to each student when they arrived, specific to them, which I think they also really appreciated. Back to housing, again, it was that pre-arrival information through the app technology with all of the information, with a lot of encouragement and some checklists. We had some pre-arrival checklists in there, and housing, of course, was top of mind, and doing all of their investigation about healthcare, transportation, etc. We tried to encourage those. We can't make those mandatory. We don't have anything to, any sticks in that regard, but we certainly did try to have and encourage all of the students to use their pre-arrival checklist, including choose your housing. Many didn't. Some of them made decisions at the last minute, and they were trying to decide between going to Halifax or Toronto or Vancouver. And housing, certainly that was a challenge for us. Finding affordable housing is the challenge that we were faced with more than anything else this year. So again, advocacy work with our province. We've been advocating in regards to there is a post-secondary student housing strategy that has been released by our Department of Advanced Education. We have been advocating with our post-secondary institutions around the importance of disbanding the meal plan from accommodations on campus. That's a lot of the challenge that our students are faced with. They don't want to have the meal plan. They don't like the food. Perhaps the meal plan is overpriced, and also to consider different kinds of accommodations where you actually have an entire floor for students with community kitchens where they can connect and engage much in a more similar fashion to they do at home than individual rooms and going to a meal hall that they don't appreciate the food in. So we've been trying to do a little bit of outreach on that regard, and we do have some institutions that are considering, reconfiguring some of their residence space to be more accommodating for international students. And we also have a number of residences that are being built in the province through some of the bylaw changes that recently the federal minister, Sean Fraser, has made in this region. So we have been able to expand and do some additional builds. But again, still much more to do in the area of housing in Nova Scotia and across the country, I would assert.
Thank you.
So a few things we've done to try and support student housing. We've managed to make deals with a few local hotels to offer either a daily, a weekly, or a monthly rate. The monthly, that's where two students would be sharing one room. that makes it a little bit cheaper. So that's kind of our backup plan. If students arrive, they can't afford an expensive hotel or Airbnb, they at least have something while they're here and looking for something longer term. We use the website Places for Students, and that's worked quite well so far. I think there's community members who want to rent rooms to students, and just having that forum to share it and knowing that they'll receive an email from a North Island College student email address, having that proof that they're a student here. Yeah, that's been a successful program for us so far. Yeah, I'd say most of our students, they rent rooms in houses, just with the way that the housing market has gone, and it's quite expensive on Vancouver Island now. Private rentals, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments, those are probably out of the price range for our students. But a spare room in a house is still affordable, and it's a good way for members of the local community to help with their own mortgage payment. So that's a beneficial situation. We use a Facebook group, so our current students are in there, and we add our new students to that. So that's a roommate finder, whether it's 2 new students arriving who want to connect and pool their resources to find a place, or if a group of existing students has a spare room in their place. That works well. That's on Facebook for now. We're in the process of maybe transitioning that over to iSent, using a chat group through the iSent app as another way to foster those relationships for newly arriving students, or students arriving and connecting with current students. We try to share a lot of information on scams, and I make myself available to students. I say, hey, if you found a listing, share it with me. I can try to help suss out if this looks legit or not. Make sure you meet the landlord before you make any kind of deposit, because unfortunately there are people out there who might be trying to scam you.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, housing, I think, it's an issue we're all grappling with right across the country. And, I think the more solutions we have for students, the better. Yes, at TRE, we have, I think a couple of years ago, we had to subsidize hotel stays for students because housing was really tight. We had the really terrible forest fire season, and we had a lot of pipeline workers in Kamloops. So things turned very quickly, and we had to think of solutions with not too much time. We did bring in some modular housing as well, which was when people heard we were doing it, it was not very popular, but it's now very popular housing, and we've received approval to keep that for a couple of years, and students really like it. We also have a pretty big homestay network of about 400 families, so we pair students with local families, and they get treated as a family member, and that's been quite popular as well. So I think with housing, it's the more the better, and we always encourage students apply early. Don't wait until your study permit is approved, if possible. All right, so the next question is about mental health supports. What kind of mental health supports are available to international students upon arrival in Canada?
Yeah, our international students, they get to meet our school counselors at their orientation. So right off the bat, we want to put a face to the name there, let them know where that office is, how to make appointments, how to do drop-in, and that's free service that's available. We also have an early assist program. So a member of our student life department who's available to support international and domestic students. They operate early assist. That's a drop-in or an appointment that they can make. It's just a chance to sit down and chat with a staff member at our college about what's going on, just that first step in a referral process. And maybe the next step is counseling, maybe it's emergency financial aid, maybe it's academic advising. So between the counselors and our early assist team, we like to think that students are well supported there. We have an organization called The Foundry, part of the John Howard Society, that does drop-in appointments on campus. So that's another option. But we find sometimes maybe students coming from different cultures or arriving newly in Canada, they're not comfortable talking with a staff member. They've maybe never talked to a counselor before. They don't know what kind of support is actually available there. They're self-conscious, they're nervous. So we have an option where they can meet with our international peer connectors. those are student employees who work for us. So we've got a couple of international students who work with me coordinating events, but they're also available to communicate with students. So our students, as they're arriving, we share the emails for our peer connectors. We introduce them at orientation, and our peer connectors are available either to meet in person or over email. They're not trained counselors. They're not experts in mental health. So if it is a real crisis situation, we're hoping that that's just a way that the student can first reach out and connect with someone, and then pass that along to me, maybe for referral to a counselor or another service. So yeah, I think it is helpful having a peer, having a student who's going through the same situation who can listen and help you find the help that you need. That's been a good program for our school.
Great. Shauna, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, this is, those were great comments, Mike. This is an area that we have seen an increase in requests for supports from our students. So we have 500 students currently in our Study and Stay program, and we do have a mental health literacy online module resource that is available to all of our students that we make available to them through the app. Dr. Stan Kutcher is a senator, but is also has a chair at Dalhousie University and is doing a lot of research in mental health supports specific to international students. That is the feedback that we get most often, is that we are connecting students to mental health resources, but they are not culturally sensitive to their needs. So they may have to spend, 1 or 2 or 3 hours explaining, impacts of polygamy on their academic life, or what it's like to live in the Middle East, or where they're from, or more about Islam to their therapist or counselor, and they essentially give up because they're not able to receive the culturally sensitive mental health supports that they need. So we've been advocating to do even more in this area, and Stan Kutcher is working on that. He and his wife both have been doing research and trying to create more culturally sensitive mental health supports. But I can say that we have seen a significant increase in requests for that through our program and through our app. And the other piece that we've seen is that our demographic has shifted post-COVID. We have more families that are arriving in Nova Scotia. So there is a lot of pressure on students that have families with them, financial pressure, housing pressure. And we have received a lot of requests for mental health supports of parents, which is different than we have received in the past. So we are trying to have more specific mental health curricula developed for our students that are specific to their culture and their demographic needs.
That's great. Yes, I think, it's fair to say that mental health is still taboo subject in a lot of places around the world, and sometimes we get students who come to Canada and we recognize that they are having mental health challenges, and we try to get them the help they need, but sometimes there's a little bit of resistance. But I think it's been encouraging for me anyways to see that over the past few years things are getting better, and we're partnering with our local mental health unit at local hospital, and we provided students have access to Here to Talk in BC, which is a mental health and wellness support, but we're also using Keep Me Safe, which is providing these mental health supports, especially after hours, and it's offered in over 100 languages. So if a student is often in times of stress, it's easier for us to articulate what our problem or issue is if we're speaking in our first language. So it's good that we have these supports, and it's good to see that international students are taking advantage of these supports as well. All right, so Shauna, your presentation included a good piece about technology. So what advice would you give us. How can universities leverage technology, including AI and digital resources, to enhance the arrival and orientation process for international students?
Thanks, Ruben. I have touched on this a little bit with the app. One thing I could give as advice is make sure that when you go through your procurement process for your app, that it doesn't go from a $60,000 purchase to a $6 million purchase. That's just a little humor from our recent ArriveCan app. The app that we are currently using is iSend Technology. Mike's already referenced it. It was created by a former international student, and I think it is doing a really good job of creating an environment to welcome international students specifically. We have been able to integrate it throughout the pre-arrival, arrival, orientation, welcome desk, and then throughout graduation and beyond. We do offer a post-graduation immigration support program through the app as well. So whenever an international student graduates from a Nova Scotia university or college, they're able to get free one-on-one immigration coaching if they're interested in staying. So it is a way to be able to create an environment to support a student throughout their entire journey. We have a lot of remote communities in Nova Scotia, so students are spread out throughout the province. And the app is a really good way to be able to connect them all and also to create communities within their communities. So there is a lot of students that are connecting together through the chat function and also through all of our webinars that are offered through the app. So I do think that the app, of course, it's only facilitating face-to-face and personal interactions, but it does a really good job of bringing community together. How we've been using AI is we essentially mainly at Edgenova employ international graduates. So a number of our students are not working in their first or second, perhaps even third language. One of the things that the AI technology has done for us in the creation of our promotional material, our marketing material, our social media channels, etc., is our students are able to use it not to write their work, but to polish some of their work, to move it to the third person, and to ensure that they are engaging and thinking critically about what they're putting into the work. So we do see our staff that are using AI in a responsible manner, and also coaching international students that are coming through our program on how to use AI. So we have offered a webinar on AI, both for our institutions and for our staff and our students, and are trying to encourage the responsible and effective use of AI through student recruitment, promotions, marketing, etc.
Right. Yeah, I think that the key messaging for use of technology and AI is that, I think it helps us to work smarter, not necessarily harder. And, there's good technology, there's not so good technology. So I think it's all about responsible use of technology. But I think, the COVID pandemic really forced us to, if we were not using technology, then our hands were forced. And it's good to see that, just in a few short years, a lot of technology is being built to help us do our work better. And I can attest to iSend. We used iSend for many years, and then I think during the pandemic we kind of slowed down. But for those of you who are not using iSend, it's a great app. All right, last question. Before I see there's a few questions in the chat. And this is about the student experience. So Mike, what strategies can universities employ to personalize or improve the arrival orientation experience for international students, taking into account their diverse backgrounds, needs, and preferences? So an example here could be delivering orientation sessions, maybe in a second language for students with low English proficiency.
Yeah, so something that I'll try to do to personalize orientation is to have an idea where students are coming from before they arrive, and then an idea of some community connections or resources we could try to connect them with. So for example, letting our students from India know about the drop-in cricket game that happens on Saturdays or letting Latin American students know about the salsa lessons that happen every Thursday night. So just an idea of who our students are, what their background is, and what unique needs that they might be facing coming in to a new culture. And then, yeah, in terms of supporting students who are English language learners, just trying to share information with them in as many different ways as possible. So there's what they hear verbally from us, there's what they can read from our website, there's the Brightspace course, there's a recording of our orientation. If they're missing that information during the first go around, providing it in some way for them to go back and look at it later when they have more time to digest that. And then, Ruben, we also wanted to talk about gathering feedback from international students for orientation experience. So yeah, we always do a survey monkey, some kind of a survey with our students after the arrival process. And we want to hear from them about their application process, about how communication was during that, about what they were nervous about during arrival, about what worked well for them with our orientation, and what we missed, what we could have done better. So we'll do a survey monkey survey as an incentive to complete that. We'll do a draw, have a gift certificate. I'll try to make a personal connection with students as well. So the students that work for me, I'll just straight up ask them, hey, what did I do well during orientation? What could I work on for next time? And having that personal connection is a good way to get some authentic information.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Shauna, do you have anything to add to that?
I love Mike's focus on personalized connections and personalized education. The piece that I would add is the importance of mentorship. So one of the key components of our program is every single one of our capstone students is partnered with a mentor, and they meet weekly. They're partnered with a mentor in their academic area or the area that they're interested in developing their career in. That relationship has been crucial to our students' success. We also have developed mentorship for students in years 1 through 3. So we have 400 students. That model is a group mentorship model. So we are able to develop group mentors based on, again, academic and or career area of expertise. And they are doing a lot of connections one-on-one and in groups. And that personal relationship is quoted as sometimes the most transformational part of their experience in the province.
Yes, I think it's very important to have peer mentors for students. We can give students all the information that we have and we like, but I think a lot of times, students really appreciate hearing from somebody who's been in their shoes or somebody who's walked the same journey as they have. So yes, Mike and Shauna, thank you so much for sharing your insights today, best practices, resources. There's a couple of questions in the chat, a few questions here. So I'll just kind of combine them. And the first goes to Shauna. Does the province of Nova Scotia partner with institutions to provide the immigration support, or do you have a list of consultants that students can reach out to for one-on-one support?
Thanks, Ruben. Thanks for the question. I touched on briefly our post-graduation immigration support program. So that is a program that has been sponsored by the province of Nova Scotia. So we have a list of RCICs that have also experience in education, higher education, and we have them at the back end of our iSent app. So students are able to book a free immigration